Welcome, everyone. It is Wednesday, August 12th. Summer is definitely almost over, but it's still pretty hot. We are honored to have our Republican candidate for Maryland State Senate, Helene Meister. Welcome to the show. Our hosts tonight are Jackie Saxton, the hostess with the mostest. There she is, cruising up to Atlantic City somewhere on some luxury cabin. And Mark Unkerfer. Welcome, guys. Take it away.
Thank you, Dwight and Helene. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll jump right into it. I think it's no secret that it is very difficult to run as a Republican in Montgomery County. So I guess my first question is, what motivated you to jump into the race?
Well, the first thing that motivated me is just the will to help people. Because like any single one of us, I am the one, and we are the ones who are receiving those electricity bills. So they're outrageous. We can't pay for them. It's like we have to choose between our mortgage, our rent, and our electricity bill. And no one seemed to really respond to our worries and concerns. I mean, if you try to talk to our local representative, they do not answer you, and they give you very vague answers, such as, "Oh, we're working on it." But then the next month you get another outrageous bill. And I just really want to help people with the cost of living here, so that mail-in can stay in the state. And that's my motivation. And yes, it is harder as a Republican. But I think with a common sense message and really down-to-earth approach, we can convince a lot of independent and Democrats to join us.
So tell me, what could Maryland do to drive down the cost of energy? I mean, why are policies making such a big difference?
So the reason why electricity at least is so high right now, it's because of several factors. One of them is, first of all, there's an increased demand in energy, especially with artificial intelligence. And as we know, as we call them now, a data center. So there's an increased demand in energy, in electricity. In the same time, we have reduced our supply because we closed power plants and for too fast. So while we close them, at very high speed, we did not plan accordingly to have enough energy supply to meet the demand. So obviously the law of economics, it makes the price really high. And because we don't have enough in-state energy, we have to import it. So right now it's about, I think 35 to 40% of our energy is imported. We have to buy it on the regional grid, and they charge very high prices because the demand is high in electricity. So they can do that. They could just charge the overcharges for electricity. But if we had not depleted our supply to start with, when we wouldn't have to go out there and buy our electricity at 40%, 40% import on the PJM grid. So we've kind of have shot ourselves in the foot energy-wise, because we just are, our representatives have shut down fossil fuel too fast. And I understand the reason. We are trying to apply green mandates and clean energy. But if we're doing that too fast and we don't have enough supply, it's not the 15% of renewable energy that is solar and wind that's going to make up for the gap. So they had to plan accordingly, and they did not, and that's where is their mistake. So this basically roughly the problem.
So you mentioned data centers, and that seems to be one of the sleeper issues, I would say, of this election cycle. Obviously, affordability being number one, but you kind of have people on both sides of the issue. You definitely have a lot of people saying, no data centers, don't develop them. We don't want them on our land. They're going to use all the resources. But at the same time, they're going to bring jobs and they're going to bring infrastructure that's very much needed for the future of technology. So where do you stand on that? Where do you think Maryland should shape its policy moving forward with data centers?
So regarding data centers, I know that there's a moratorium of 6 months in Montgomery County, but I believe Frederick County has allowed data center to actually set up there. I think they accepted it. Their county council voted for it. So it's kind of interesting how suddenly Montgomery County said, oh, wait, we're going to have a moratorium. And the other county decided economically that it was valuable to have them. So the thing with data center is they are very lucrative for counties because they bring a lot of property taxes to the revenue of the county. Because I assume because of the installation and the land that they occupied, so it gives a lot of revenue to the county. So it's interesting for them to have the data center, and I assume that that's why Virginia has so many of them. Another thing is they do not, well, they do bring jobs in terms of constructing the site and building the site. But once the site is launched, they don't have a ton of employees after. It's mainly machine running. They have a little bit of employees, but it's not, except for the construction part, it's not their main, I guess, assets or things they bring to the county. I would say it's the property tax revenue that is interesting for our state. The problem with data center is that, number one, they are large energy consumers, so they need large load. So when they have those large load, it's expensive to pay for it. And it looks like they're using, the PJM grid, so they don't provide for their own energy supply. So I think that in order to fix that, we need to pass legislation to sort of, bring them to build their own energy that would supply their own data center. They should be able to build generator or a way that they can produce their own energy. Because the other option is to charge, for instance, a tariff for large load, but that's still a tariff, so that's not good economically in a way. So maybe it's better to just have them produce their own electricity. If we can mitigate that, at least, which is this large use of energy, of electricity, then it's actually feasible to have them. Well, the other issues that they bring is water usage. So what I was thinking of doing if I'm elected is to ask for a study by a committee that would study what is the use of the electricity, how much they cost, what is the upgrade that they need, because sometimes they also need a lot of transmission and upgrade. So what is the cost of those upgrades on the grid? What is the cost of how much energy they use, and any other costs that they bring, such as water usage, what's the risk for the environment. We should definitely have pass also legislation to bring it, like, at least to look at what are all the impacts that they have, and go from that and decide if we want to have them or not. Well, keeping in mind that our neighborhood states have them. Like Virginia is the or the international center of data center, and they are on the grid. They are on the PJM grid. So indirectly, Maryland pays for them because we're part of the grid too. So they are going to be there. That's the thing that we have to think about. Is that we're going to have AI, we're going to have internet, we're going to use heavily electricity in the future, and we're going to also need the data center. So I think we have to have them, but we just have to find a way to mitigate, whatever negative aspects or whatever negative consequence they can have for us, including not, causing skyrocketing of our energy bill.
So let's take a step back and about your background, because it's probably helpful for people to know a little bit about your bio, which is very impressive. So why don't you explain professionally what your background is and how you ended up coming to Montgomery County?
Oh, long story. So, well, originally, I'm an immigrant, so I come from France, and then I came to the United States to study originally. So I went to the University of Virginia, and I got a law degree there. And then for some time, I had an internship. I got my LL.M. I had an internship. After that, I returned working in France. And then after that, I immigrated back again in the United States. And I picked DC because I just really knew the area. And I worked as a law clerk for some time. Then I went back to school, got a Juris Doctor. And then since then, I have been involved in different things. I've been doing litigation support for law firms. I've been also I've been really interested in legislative policy. So I recently was sitting on the Commission for Women for the Montgomery County. And I've been also doing tax work, because my degrees are in tax. I have 2 masters in tax. I have a master's in public finance and another one in international taxation. So my specialty is sort of tax. So I've been also doing, tax for private businesses as a side job. So yeah, I've been dabbling in a few things.
Well, since money and taxation seems to be your area of expertise in the state Senate, what would you do when helping to work on the budget or going through the amendments process on the budget to try and bring taxes down for residents of the state, because they seem to just be going up?
So in the Maryland budget, the 2 items that are very pricey are the blueprint, and it's going to cost $30 billion over 10 years. And there's also substantial Medicaid cost, which, as you know, the federal government cover half, but the other half is for Maryland. And then there's also education, especially everything that's university, undergrad and grad colleges, Montgomery College and such. So there's other obviously community college around in Maryland. But so that education piece on top of the blueprint and Medicaid is very heavy on the Maryland budget. I mean, there's other items we can look at, but those are the 2 main pieces that cost a lot of money. And I think that for the blueprint, so one idea it would be to scale back the blueprint a little bit or try to adjust timeline so it's actually feasible to still have it. I don't think we should roll it back because it's obviously benefiting humans, benefiting the schools in Maryland. So it's helping, to make our youth more able to get on a good job on the job market. Is helping Maryland. So I don't think we should roll it back. We just have to find a way to adjust deadline for it, to maybe, for instance, for what they call universal pre-K, maybe if we cannot have it for, as it said, universally, because it's universal, maybe we can have income limit, for instance, and reserve it for children who come from a underprivileged family. So we have to find a way to sort of contain cost, to contain those big items a little bit. And then after that, if we can manage to sort of contain or be a little more fiscally responsible on those big items, then we can start to save money. And then we can start to also look at other things that we could trim out of the budget, the money that we give to grants, that we give to nonprofits, for instance. So grants to nonprofits, it's something that we need to look at because right now, the state of Maryland give a lot of money to nonprofits, but then it also has commission that are here and there that are not the state itself, but they're commission. And they give also, that are public, but they give money also to the nonprofit. So we need to build sort of a centralized system where we register, whether it's the state of Maryland, whether it's those public commissions or those agencies that give that how much they give to them. We need to record it. We need to make sure it's somewhere, because we know what the state gives, but we don't know what those agencies give because it's not centralized. Once we know how much we give, we can repertoriate it. We can keep track of it, and we can make sure also that they keep up with their tax obligations, because it's one thing to give money to nonprofit, and they sometimes have very legitimate and good purpose, but we have to make sure that they respect also their tax obligation, because we're giving public money. So they have to file very specific declaration. They have to say how much they give to for instance, to their salaried employee. There's all sorts of tax declaration that they need to, or tax fillings that they need to keep up with. So there's that we could look at, and we could become just a little more fiscally responsible. And if we can manage to contain some of those expense, then we don't need to suddenly come up with all those extra fees. So, we're going to have $3 billion deficit this year, so we're going to increase the tax on the registration and on the gas tax, the sales tax. So we're adding all those fees, and they add up on making the cost of living expensive. So we have to be more fiscally responsive, and I want to think that it's possible to do that while we'll still maintain our essential programs. because I do think that education and healthcare are important. So I think that I would like to be able to work on waste, waste and not abuse, but the waste in the government and spending, and making sure that we're more fiscally responsible, and we have a lot more discipline about how we approach it, about also how we plan, how much money do we need, do we have enough reserve? You need to think like an accountant a little bit. You need to, that's, do you have enough reserve? Do you need to have that spending? And also, did you plan enough to cover this? Because if we don't plan, then we can say, everything, like we're going to have like free education until college, and then we can plan things like this. That sounds really good. But then if we don't account the money we have, and let's just not do it. I mean, we cannot tax people to 80% either. So, we have to be reasonable.
So you were a parent of a Montgomery County Public School student. So you've got firsthand experience working with the system. What are your impressions, and how do they inform the way you would act, or you would vote as a legislator?
How the school system influenced me as a legislator?
How would your experience as a parent influence your approach as a legislator?
Well, if I could at the state level somewhat have a say on how the county runs the school, I think that if we want the standards, the reading standards, the math standards right now they're not too good for Maryland, if we want them to get better, we just have to go back to basics. I just don't feel like I just don't think like teachers are really helping students to develop skills. They're just they follow a very strict curriculum that changes. It feels like every 2 years. It changes often, the curriculum, and then they don't teach basics. So, for instance, between the education of my son and mine, he didn't learn to read with phonics. Why are we not using reading with phonics anymore? And they don't in Montgomery County. They don't. The school do not. They use another technique. I do not know what it is. So I had to hire, for instance, a private tutor so that he learns to read, because he could not learn to read in school. And it's called, he learned to read with a technique that's called spell and read. And it's use phonics. You tap in your hand and you say sounds, and it helps the kids to read. Actually, there are studies that shows it helps the kid to learn how to read, not really fast, but at a better speed than when waiting until they're in 9th grade to know how to read. Because truthfully, at the end of 1st grade, you should know how to read. So I think that I feel like we were supposed to have good school here in Maryland, but I don't know if we're using the right method to teach the children. I've noticed that he did not get some serious teaching in handwriting either. And in terms of history and the general culture, it was an abyss. I mean, my education was much more strict in terms of learning history, geography, in terms of the list of books that were given by the teacher that you had to read every year. I feel like we have to go back to basics, to teach the basics to children, and go back maybe the way to go is to go back to old method, to the old way, and not changing also curriculum with new curriculum and new things all the time. That just doesn't work. But for special education, so my son had an IEP and he had the specialized ed teacher. So I thought I thought on that level, giving him a specialized ed teacher, the school did good, but I had to fight a lot. Like I really had to hire an advocate to defend me as a parent, because the school would not listen to me. For instance, they made him repeat 1st grade twice. And I would go to the professors' meeting when we had the IEP, and they would not tell me what was his problem. They would not tell me what was his learning disability. They would not tell me what it was. They would not. I would ask why he can't go to 2nd grade, why he has to go back home 2 years in a row with the same homework, and they would say that he doesn't have the level, that he doesn't qualify for 2nd grade. So because I was disagreeing with them, I started to research, and I had to hire an advocate to represent me, because I could not understand what they were doing with me at all, and with my son. I did not know they sent him he has ADHD, so I found out that by myself later. Like I hired somebody who diagnosed them with ADHD and dyslexia. And then I found that out later, and I was able after that to help him. But the school the school was not good. They put him into a learning center with children who, children who had like significant difficulty for some of them. And he was held back, and it was getting worse. Year after year was getting worse. He was getting the same homework, and I was looking at it. You got the same homework last year. So I said, this has to stop. And then I stepped in. But, so some parents don't have the resources to be able to do that. So, there are a lot of things to improve, I think, in K-12 and, in K-12 in Maryland, a lot. And my experience is that I just don't think the school here is doing. I know they have a good reputation. I know that's what we say about Maryland schools, that are very good. But maybe if they target very specific program, maybe advanced classes for gifted students. But for the general curriculum, for the general student population, I don't think the school is doing a good job at all.
And one of the other big issues that's been really increasing, especially in Montgomery County, both in and outside of the schools, has been the juvenile crime. And I think a big part of the reason for that is because of the soft on crime, especially juvenile crime policies that have come through the legislature in the past few years. I mean, we just had that horrifically tragic car accident in Germantown last week, where I think it was 7 juveniles stole a car and they killed a father of 5. So what should we be doing to scale back these soft on crime policies? But it has to be in a way that the Democrats are willing to get on board with, because we're not going to be able to unilaterally do it as Republicans.
So, talking about this issue, there are rodeos down my house. Sometimes I hear them at night on Saturday night. There's like rodeos, like where they just go up and down the street really loud with making sound with their tire. Like there's kids doing that around, even just down, because I live on a boulevard. So they do that right on my house. So I think that is difficult, because I think that the idea of the common ideas that there is in the legal system by legal professional or specialist is that, or so at least some of them, that jailing people is not helping to reduce crime. And I think I've been to law school, and I had teachers explaining this, and we read studies about it, and then I understand that maybe giving harsh imprisonment sentences is not necessarily going to be all the time the solution, but we do need to have a system where there is some kind of punishment for people who violate the criminal laws, who are just unruly out there and commit crime. That's more than being just unruly. So we do need a criminal system. And I think that the principle is that if you are under 18, you are not fully criminally responsible, because the premises is that your brain is not functioning like the brain of an adult, and sometimes you just do not know what you're doing. So because of that, it's a mild or sort of attenuated criminal liability. So this is what we have had for probably, so this is probably in the criminal justice system for a while. This is not new, those policies. But I think slowly they have probably evolved in being too more and more laxist or lenient. And the problem with that is that if the victim are not given, what they deserve in court, if we keep the crime going, then slowly, people will not say, oh, well, I can do this because there's not going to be any retribution for that. Oh, I can get away with this. And so I think that we have to get back into teaching people okay, you can't commit crime because you're going to, you're going to be punished for this. You could be going to jail. And if the kids are maybe they vary between 16 and I don't know exactly what the law is in Maryland, but in between 16 or 18, maybe we should not have laws that are too lenient for juvenile that are between those age, between 16 to 18. Below that, it's tougher because the younger they are, the lesser the criminal liability is. So after it depends on what are exactly your laws. If we're talking about being in court, what are exactly your laws? What is the prosecutor can charge them for? What do we allow? I think that we should be careful. And I know that we've passed law recently about this because I read something about that. I think we should be careful about becoming too lenient with young juvenile. We just have to be careful. Maybe the solution is not imprisonment. Maybe there's other things to research, but we have to be careful of that, because if people have the feeling that they can commit crime and not being punished, they'll keep doing, and it will get worse. This has been proved. I think there was those laws in the 80s in the United States where we had to pass mandatory minimums because we had to fight like the drug traffic. So the way we did it, and we passed mandatory minimums so that the judge could not reduce the sentence as he wished. He had to charge. There's a federal mandatory minimum that he has to, he cannot go by and say, no, I'm not going to apply this. He has to apply those federal mandatory minimums. And sometimes it's maybe something we need to look at, is that there has to be some mandatory minimum so that the judge cannot completely say, oh, well, you're just not going to, we're just not going to send you to jail today, or we're not going to send you to, well, we'll give you parole, because it's common to give parole too. But maybe we need to make sure that we have especially for some specific serious crimes. I mean, we're talking about murder, but we're talking about the drug trafficking. We definitely need mandatory minimum, maybe at the state level. I don't know if it exists at the state, but they do exist at the federal level.
Let's talk about your district, which is District 17, which is in Rockville and in Gaithersburg. Are there particular issues that you are focused on in your communities that you would think should get more attention in your race?
I want to focus on my race. I want to focus on really basic issues that are going to make life easier for people. Because, I ran before for state delegate. That was 4 years ago. And this time, I thought to myself, if I'm running this time, it's going to be I'm doing this really on something that's easy for people to understand. That's an easy message. And it's really about making people's life better. It's about just helping people. So if I'm going to help people with their bills, and that's the idea for LD-17, because like I said, when I receive my electricity bills, my utility bills, when I look at my property tax, when I look at the bills I get, like any average Marylander, like any normal person out there, we're getting a lot of bills, and it's getting really difficult to stay in Maryland. So what I would like to do for LD-17 is prevent residents from leaving the area. I would like to, make it a little more affordable to stay here so that residents don't have to leave. And it's really I'll give all what I have, but it's hard. It is hard. It is a 4-to-1 registration, but I'm really in there, and I hope people believe in my good faith that I want to help, because I know what the situation is. We have migration, domestic migration is out of Maryland and out of the county. It's right now we have more people who live than people that come. They go to other states. They go to North Carolina, West Virginia, because it's just cheaper to live there. The cost of housing is cheaper. It's probably cheaper also in terms of utilities. So people will leave. People will leave because the truth is that our pockets aren't without end. And I don't know why our leaders don't understand that they can tax us, at will. I have no idea why. I don't understand half of the message here around in LD-17. We have people who stand in the county council that they say, oh, well, we're going to tax people that are wealthy because they have to pay their fair share. But the next thing they do is they remove a property tax credit that benefit mostly because it's a fixed tax credit that benefits mostly people that are on limited and fixed income. So I mean, you're missing your target here, because you're tackling the middle class. So
Right.
I'm not exactly sure how those people lack complete sense of realism, that they will say all those things outrageous out loud, but then they do exactly the opposite of what they say. So this has to stop.
So are there any other topics that you wanted to make sure that we covered that we didn't get to yet?
No, one topic that I will also want to talk about is I'd like to do something to make it easier for small businesses to set up in Maryland. I'd like to launch a package of the $100 maximum formation package for a business, and reduce their tax obligation. And there's an annual report that's $400 every year that I'd like to remove for small business owner. And I wanted to make it easier for people to develop a businesses, because it just means jobs. It just means like when our kids, after college or during the summer, when they need to get a small job on the side, they can go find a small business here and find a job there. Like my son right now, he's working for somebody who has an ice cream truck, and that's his summer job. He's selling ice cream. And we have to help those small business owner, and we have to let them develop, because they give jobs to our kids, but they also give jobs to us adults. So I think it's something important that I want to do in my program is that I'm a daughter of a small business owner. I know it's very hard for small business owner to survive, because you have a lot of taxes and a lot of regulations that get in the way. Labor regulation also is something that can hurt, to a certain level. It can hurt also small business owner. And it's something that I want to do, because I know that the first time I came to America, I remember always. And the first time I came was actually, I did an English program in Houston, in Texas. And I drove by in this big avenue, and I see all those businesses, restaurants, fast food, you name it. They all had sign for hire. They all said they're hiring. In my life, coming from France, I can tell you, when I did not see very often in France businesses with signs that said we are hiring, because when
yeah, I was going to say that's a great observation about really what a dynamic economy provides to citizens.
Yes. Yeah, I was astonished at that. I'd look at all those signs. I'm like, wow, there's jobs here.
So tell us a little bit about how to get in touch with your campaign, and what events and how you've been campaigning.
So my campaign is on my website is voteforhelene.com, and you can go on there, and I try to post all the recent event I'm going to participate into. Some of my policies or political program is on there too. How to contact me. So it's very easy. Voteforhelene.com. I'm gonna have an event for Gaithersburg Labor Day parade on September 7th. I'm going to have also. I'm going to try to organize a Super Saturday with the Maryland GOP. Where I'm going to have volunteers working door to door. I'm going to actually go to group with Sherry O'Reilly, who's running for CD8 for Congress, and we're going to have a task force of the two of us and our volunteers, and trying to overlap, because there's overlapping area. Everything everywhere in Rockville can overlap with CD8. Not Gaithersburg, but Rockville does. So we're going to do this too, and it's going to be probably a Saturday in September. If anyone wants to come and help, I'll put it on my website when we have the date validated. And then I'm around door knocking in the area, and if anyone wants to help, help me, that would be great. Again, you can just shoot me an email on my website. And then I'm trying to fundraise too, and fundraising is difficult, but anything helps. Any small amount helps, like $40, and I'll print palm cards and drop them at doors. But it's what it is when you're a small grassroots candidate. It gives you strength too, because you know what? No, I'm not paid by anybody. I'm doing this, with my small means and the small help I can get from people. No private interest, nobody controls me. It's like I do what I can with what I have.
Awesome.
Jackie?
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. I applaud you tremendously for stepping up to run in Montgomery County. I know it's not easy, and we're definitely wishing you the best of luck and the best of support.
Thank you.
Yeah. So from the YR end, I can say we're also promoting our Red, White, and Barbecue. That's going to be in Frederick on September 27th. It's a Sunday from 2 to 6. So tickets are only $25 for YRs, $30 for non-YRs. Kids under 5 come for free. And we're giving a portion of the proceeds back to disability services across the state of Maryland. So we'd love to have you guys come out and support a good cause. And Mark, Dwight, what's going on with the state party?
Well, let's see. We have Pizza and Politics, September 6th. Hold on one second. I'll get you the exact date. Our speaker is candidate for House of Delegates in 9A, Fitzgerald Movor. And it's going to be at the only Mama Lucia. So come one, come all. Candidates are welcome to drop in as well. I know, Helene, it's not in your district, but you're more than welcome to come. And I'll give you a few minutes to talk about your campaign if you'd like to come. And it is September. Give me 1 second. It is September 3rd, Thursday.
Awesome.
September 3rd, Thursday. Okay, I'm putting that on my.
Yeah, and that's at the Mama Lucia's and only. I'll send you an email with the details also once I get everything squared away. And also that Monday is the Kensington and Labor Day parade. And I know your district goes into Gaithersburg a little bit, right? District 17, you got a little bit of Gaithersburg. Because I don't know if you knew Josephine Wang, she was the stalwart. She would always run for Senate or delegate in District 17. And
I think that leads into Labor Day. That's
yeah. That's what I was saying. The 7th is Labor Day.
right.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to do the Kensington or the Gaithersburg parade. They're both great parades. Some candidates have done both, Kensington and Labor Day. And next week is the Great Montgomery County Fair.
Yay.
And I'm assuming you'll be.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, I will be stopping by. I'll probably come by Tuesday or Wednesday, most likely Tuesday. Tuesday is Senior Citizens Day there, and
not that you're a senior citizen.
I say you're aging yourself, Dwight.
No, but I tell you, during the pandemic, I had the don't ask, don't tell policy about you know how Costco's was letting people in at 8 o'clock, or I should say 9 o'clock. Or I did not say I let the gray hairs do the speaking for me. But
I think on that note we're gonna wrap up.
I think that's a good place to stop.
Before you admit to any other minor crimes. Thank you everybody so much.
That's
for
hardly a
joining
crime.
us, and we will be back next week with another guest. Have a good one.
Good night, and thank you, Helene. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Let's go down to Missoni, where Italian cuisine shines. Let's go down